If you've got a bit of cash to spend and you're looking for a family car, then you're probably going to be looking at either of these cars. It's the Mercedes A-Class and the BMW 1 Series. Now, they've got to do everything basically. They've got to be good to drive, practical, with nice interiors. They've got to offer what you'd expect from a VW Golf or a Ford Focus, but with a bit more polish to go with a posh badge on the nose. Now, the A-Class is the older car in this test, and we rate it very, very highly indeed. So this currently is the benchmark, but here we have an all-new competitor, and it really is all new because yes, there have been 1 Series before, but this is very different to the ones that have gone before. And the reason for that is because it's changed from being rear-wheel drive to front-wheel drive. And right now you can save more than £2,500 off a BMW 1 Series and more than £4,500 off a Mercedes A-Class by going to whatcar.com. But right now we're going to start this review by looking at the interiors. A sound driving position and simple controls are always ideal. So of these two cars, it's the 1 Series that does it better. Whatever your size, you'll be able to get comfortable here, and it just offers slightly more adjustment than the A-Class, but there really isn't much in it. So the driver's seat goes a little bit lower, this steering wheel comes slightly further out, and generally this is as good a driving position as you'll find in this class. And it really is very impressive. Although, on both cars, adjustable lumbar support is an optional extra. And in the 1 Series, it costs £150, but if you want it in the A-Class, then you've got to get the Premium Plus pack, which costs £3,595, which is expensive, but you do get a lot of other kit thrown in as well. Aside from adjustable lumbar support, the seats in the 1 Series actually offer slightly more support generally than the ones that you get in the A-Class. So overall, this offers the better driving position. And what's also absolutely outstanding in the 1 Series is the build quality. So the feel and the robustness around this interior is simply better than pretty much everything, apart from the Audi A3, which is just about to go off sale and be replaced by a new model. Poke anywhere, try and shake anything off the dashboard, and it is so solid, really excellent quality on display here. And this infotainment system is top drawer. So we've long spoken about how great iDrive is, and in the 1 Series you get a 8.8-inch touchscreen as standard, but you can up that to a 10.3-inch screen if you want a bit more of a high-tech looking interior. But here we've got the entry-level one, and it's brilliant. It's a touchscreen that's very responsive, quite simply laid out as well. You've also got voice command, and down here you've got a rotary dial to control things with some shortcut buttons around it too. And then, next to the infotainment system, you have a driver display here, which as standard gets these analog dials with a digital screen in the middle. But if you want to, you can go for the Tech Pack 2, and that changes all of that to a fully digital display. So that, along with the bigger infotainment system, still gives you a pretty big wow factor with lots of tech and a futuristic look. Although, as we'll see in a minute, it's not quite up there with the A-Class. The view out the front is great in both cars. They have pretty thin pillars, so these don't really obstruct your view at junctions at all. And in the 1 Series, you get LED headlights as standard, although in the A-Class, the entry-level trim misses out on them. But in that A-Class, you get a reversing camera as standard, but you've got to go up a few trims if you want to get front and rear parking sensors as standard. In the 1 Series, you get front and rear parking sensors as standard, but a reversing camera is an option on all trims. Storage up front in the 1 Series is pretty good. You can see in the center console, space here with a USB port, a couple of cup holders, some wireless phone charging up there. Glove box is a decent size, and the door bins are very good as well. Now the 1 Series might have rock solid durability up front, but it doesn't have the glitz and the glamour on offer from the A-Class. So as soon as you get in this car, of course, the first thing you notice are these two massive screens here. And it makes pretty much everything else in the class look a little bit old, doesn't it? This is very futuristic. It's like getting out the latest iPhone. Then it does look more special and more futuristic than anything else in the class. And the good news is, it's actually quite a good system to use as well. So you've got a touch screen, and it's quick, it's responsive, and the menu layout is perhaps could be simpler, but it's still not completely mind-boggling. You've also got these shortcut buttons on the steering wheel. Now these kind of trackpad menu switcher things on the side here take a bit of getting used to, but once you have got it, then actually they make quite a lot of sense, and it's pretty easy to use on the move. You've also, down here, got a trackpad as well. On top of that, you've got, just like in the BMW, a voice command system. So this looks great, but it's worth pointing out that if you go for an entry-level A-Class, then you get a 7-inch screen with a 7-inch driver display. If you go up a rung, then you get a 7-inch screen here and a 10.25-inch driver display. And then if you go for the full tech extravaganza that we have here, then you have these two 10.25-inch screens that are joined together like this, and it does look brilliant. However, the build quality is questionable. So look, if I grip this air vent here and push it a little bit, then you can see there's quite a bit of wobble in it. Whereas when you compare that to the 1 Series, that absolutely is not budging for anyone. So the materials actually feel quite nice on the dashboard, and even around these air vents, the plastics feel pretty good, but just the nuts and bolts of the thing, how well it's put together, just isn't very consistent, and certainly compared to the 1 Series, doesn't feel as good. Another weak area of quality is just on these buttons around here. So for the windows and the door mirrors, they feel quite cheap and a bit hollow, and this wobbles around a little bit as well. And it's also worth pointing out that the A-Class has a slightly different layout to the 1 Series. So it doesn't have a gear selector down here. Instead, like all Mercedes, it has it on the steering column up here as a stalk. And if you want to adjust your seat, then the electric adjustment is up on the door as well. So lots to like about the A-Class up front. It's just a shame the quality isn't a bit more consistent throughout it. Now, in the back of the 1 Series, the switch to front-wheel drive has meant that the designers have had so much more option to stretch the insides of the car, and so now it is so much better than it was before. So there's loads more room than the previous 1 Series, and in fact, it's now very similar to the A-Class, and 2 tall adults will be pretty comfortable in the back of both cars. In the 1 Series, you get a little bit more headroom, but the A-Class offers slightly more legroom. But really, the differences between the 2 cars are very slight. Strangely, if you want the luxury of a centre folding armrest, you can't get it at all in the back of the 1 Series. And in the A-Class, you've got to go for one of these top spec AMG line models to get it. And 3 in the back is going to be a bit of a squeeze in both cars. You may be slightly more comfortable here because it has a smaller hump in the floor. Now, while these cars are difficult to separate on rear seat space, it's easier to make a distinction for the boot, because the A-Class has a longer load bay, is generally bigger, and it's better because it can fit 6 carry-on size suitcases into the back. However, the 1 Series can only fit 5 carry-on size suitcases into the back, which is no more than the old 1 Series, and in fact, it's no more than much smaller cars like the Ford Fiesta. So that is disappointing, but it's not all bad news, because compared to the A-Class, the 1 Series has a lower loading lip, and it also has much more underfloor boot storage. Plus, look at this, when you fold it back, it can prop itself up at the back there. But how expensive are these cars, and which one is better value? These are the key things you need to know about buying and owning a BMW 1 Series and a Mercedes A-Class. Well, it certainly isn't clear-cut. Across the lineup, there's not much to separate these 2 cars by list price. The good news is, if you go to whatcar.com, you can get a great saving on both. There isn't much to separate them on depreciation either, so they both hold on to their value pretty well. And if you want to pay monthly via a PCP finance deal, then again, it's very close, but at the minute, BMW is offering slightly more competitive deals than Mercedes. To make sure you're paying the right price, check out What Car Target Finance. Claimed fuel economy is also very similar across the lineup. We tested this 118D against the A200D, and over our test route, the Mercedes was slightly more efficient. So what are these cars like to drive? Well, we're in the 1 Series now, and as we said, the big news here is that switch from rear-wheel drive to front-wheel drive. Now that is something that has annoyed plenty of hardcore BMW fans. But the fact of the matter is, it's made it a significantly better car. So where the previous 1 Series was quite sloppy, not very accurate, now it's really tight, really precise, and in fact, it is better than the A-Class. The main reason for that is the steering that you have in the 1 Series now. So right from when you begin to apply some steering lock, it's so lively, it's so responsive, and it just feels really, really nice. Very impressive. And that's backed up with some excellent body control as well. So all the vertical body movements in the 1 Series are really, really tightly controlled. And it just makes it feel really agile. So it's great to drive, really very impressive. Now all those things are true even of the lesser trim levels in the 1 Series lineup. But if you go for an M Sport model, then it takes all those positive traits and it turns it up an extra dial. So the steering is even nicer. The suspension is firmer, not uncomfortable, but even better controlled. So generally, it just really is the sweet spot of this lineup. If you really care about driving and you want to get a 1 Series, then we really would suggest considering an M Sport model. And it's got a good selection of engines in the lineup as well. So there's a couple of petrols and a few diesels. Of the petrols, and in fact the entire range, the pick of the range is the 118i. It's a 1.5 litre 3-cylinder petrol engine, and it's a great companion for everyday driving. It's easy, relaxing, quiet around town, still punchy, good on the motorway too. But the A-Class is still brilliant to drive. The steering is really accurate, and it's very agile still, but it just doesn't quite offer what the 1 Series does. The steering and the handling is just up a notch from this car, but it's still really good. It's a very competent car, and you'll enjoy it if you do end up getting this. It's also got an impressively broad breadth of engine choice as well. The pick of the entire lineup is the A180D. It's the best all-rounder, it's great on the motorway, nice and quiet too. And we're in the A200D, which again is very impressive, but it costs more, and really the gains that you get don't really make it worth it over that A180D. For petrol, the A200 feels a bit weedy, so the best one in the lineup on that side is the A250, which is really impressive again. And also, you can get an A250E, which is a plug-in hybrid. So overall, it's got a slightly more varied engine lineup for now, although this car has been around longer, so eventually the 1 Series will have a similar breadth of choice. The A-Class is also noisier inside. So I'm not sure if you can hear it, but when we do go over these bumps in the road, you get quite a loud twang from the suspension, particularly off the rear axle. And it just means that it gives a feeling of this being quite uncomfortable when it goes over those bumps. Although the reality is, it's actually softer and slightly more comfortable than M Sport versions of the 1 Series. Similarly, this automatic gearbox isn't the greatest. The one in the 1 Series is better because it's smoother, and generally you just don't notice it. After a while, it just does its own thing. You don't even really realise it's there. But in the A-Class, it can fumble around trying to find an ideal gear if you want a quick burst of pace. And then around town as well, when it initially kicks in, it can be quite jerky. So again, that is something that does frustrate, and it means that the 1 Series is overall slightly more relaxing to drive. So now you've heard everything you need to know about the 1 Series and the A-Class, how should you spec them if you want to buy one? We would choose to power your 1 Series with the 1.5 litre 3-cylinder petrol engine that you get in the 118i. For the trims, go for M Sport to get some sporty styling tweaks, the best suspension setup, and a few luxuries like a leather interior and heated front seats. And also treat yourself to adjustable lumbar support. Alpine White solid paint is free, but you'll probably want to go for one of the metallic options for £560. If you go for M Sport, you get 18-inch alloys as standard, but you can up them to 19 inches if you want. You can upgrade to a touring fuel tank, which increases the fuel tank capacity by 8 litres to 50 litres, and that should mean that you go to the pumps a bit less. For the Mercedes, the pick of the engine range is the A180D, but if you do want petrol power, then go for the A250, although bear in mind it is quite expensive. We'd go for mid-range sport trim, which gets 17-inch alloys, dual zone climate control, LED headlights, and some styling tweaks as standard. Polar white non-metallic paint is standard, but the fancier paint options range from £595 to £1,795. The BMW 1 Series offers livelier handling and amazing build quality inside. The Mercedes A-Class is more practical, it's more comfortable, it's got those fancy screens inside, but it's noisier over bumps and it can be jerky to drive in traffic. So overall, taking everything into consideration, the BMW 1 Series, particularly because of how well it drives, is the more polished car, and it's our winner here. And to save more than £2,500 off one, go to whatcar.com right now, where you can also find a saving of more than £4,500 off the A-Class.